Hello and welcome to Patient Profiles. My name is Erin and today I'm going to be walking you through the construction of a basic profile. So the first thing that we're going to do when we open the program is add our datasets. So we just click this Add Dataset button here, and as you can see there are a variety of different file types that the program supports. So you just choose the correct type and click OK, and then you choose the datasets that you would like to import. And you can add datasets at any point in the process of creating your profiles. So if you get new datasets or if you realize that you forgot to import something that you're going to need, you can do this at any time. The program also gives you the option of importing just a few variables from a dataset. So if you know that you're not going to be using certain variables, you don't have to import them. But if you decide later on that you do want those variables, you can just click on the dataset name and then click this re-import button right here. And then you can re-import with all of the variables. If you click on a dataset name over here, you can see down here some details about that dataset. And then if you click the View button, you can actually view the raw data. And this is helpful because you don't have to have SAS on your computer or any other additional programs in order to view the data. And if you click on any of these column titles, you can sort by that variable. And if you drag the column titles up here, you can group by those variables. So if you wanted to see all of the severe, serious events, you would just expand those two items, and then you could take a look at them. So the first thing that we're going to do in creating our profiles is fill in our patient information section. So we'll go ahead and give that a title. And then we'll click on the patient information row over here in the profile layout. And this profile layout is just a basic template that the program starts you off with. If you don't want to use any of those rows, you can just click this delete row button right here and get rid of any of them. So to fill in the patient information section, we'll just go ahead and check off the variables that we'd like to use. In this section, you can use variables from multiple datasets if you'd like. And if there's a change that you want to make to the way that these variables are displayed, you can do that over here. So maybe we want this to say age, years, and height, inches. And we can also make changes to the actual answers down here. So if we want USC written out as University of Southern California, we can make that change as well. The next thing that we're going to do is define some flags for our profiles. The flags will appear at the top of every page of your profiles. So we just click on a flag button right here. And then we can just select the conditions for our flag. So if we want to see all of the severe AEs, we just give it a name and click Enable. And we can make them a little bit more complex than that if we'd like. You can add as many conditions as you'd like. And then when you hover your mouse over these buttons, you can see how many patients fulfill those criteria. The next thing that we're going to do is add a header row. The program gives you two options for header rows. One is displayed at the top of every page of your profiles, and the other one is just displayed in the patient selector window. And we'll see that when we click over to our report view. So we want to add our investigator name as a variable. We're just going to spell that all out here. And we want our randomization date. And then we just drag them on over here. And we can click on our report view and see how our profiles are taking shape. Alright, so as we can see, here's our patient information section. We can see the changes that we've made to the variables age, years, height, inches, and University of Southern California right here. We have a few columns here. We have a column for each of our header variables, and the row of buttons for patient selector window only would mean that there would be columns added here, but they would not actually be displayed in the profiles. We also have a column for each of our flags that we've defined and a column for each of our data sets that we've imported. And we can sort by any of these columns here. So if we want all of our low white blood cell count patients at the top, we can see those, and then we can just click here to see that specific patient's profile. So we can see our flags defined here, and then we can click here to sort by the patient ID. We can also make some aesthetic changes in this window here. So we want to increase the characters to display, just in case we have some answers that are longer. And we can add some grid lines. So the next time we click over, we'll see those changes reflected. So we're going to come back over to our design view now, and we're going to go ahead and get started on our timeline. So we'll click on our timeline here, and the first thing that we need to do is tell it our day 0 date. So we just find that variable here and drag it on over to this button in the date settings window. We'll give this timeline a name. We'll call it our AE timeline. And then we will check off our timeline legend box right here. And the timeline legend defines any color coding that you create within the timeline. We'll give it a name here. And then we need to create an event table row to fill in the details of our timeline. So we'll click New Row and click on Event Table Row. And then we just find the variables that we would like displayed in there. So we're going to add our adverse events. And we can make these columns smaller so that we can add more information to this table as we'd like. We'll give it a name right up here. And we'll also change the table name in the table options window. And this allows us to be able to easily identify the table within our PDF once we've saved it. We can add two-level bookmarks, and then it will be bookmarked as this table name. All right. And we'll come down here and add some highlighting. We want to highlight our adverse events that are continuing. So we just check off that and click Enable. And then we can make adjustments to how exactly it's highlighted by scrolling through here. So we find our table highlight section. We're going to uncheck the bold font, and we'll change the color to this reddish color. And finally, we're going to add some color coding to our timeline. So we can see right here that it's going to be shown in the timeline, and the timeline that it will be shown in is AE timeline. And then we're going to color by column 4, which is severity. And then we just come over here and choose the colors that we would like for each level of severity. So we'll choose crimson for life-threatening, and so on. All right, and then when we click over to our report view, we can see how that's taking shape. So here we see our timeline. We see our legend down here, life-threatening, severe, moderate, and mild events, and how they're color-coded. And down here we can see our adverse event table. And that's highlighted with continuing events. And if we decide we only want the timeline to be displayed, we can actually come into our design view and click this hide button, which means that this table here will populate the timeline, but it won't actually be displayed. Just to see an example of that, we'll click that hide button, come over to our report view, and then we see our timeline without a table below it. All right, so we'll head back over to our design view, and now we're going to create another timeline for our con meds. So we'll click New Row, and we'll add a timeline row. This one we are going to call Con Meds. And we will add a legend for this one as well. And then we're also going to add vertical lines for specific study days. So we'll just define those here. And click OK. And then we can see them pop up here. And we're actually going to unhide this so that we can see it. We'll add a little section header above our con meds. And once again, to fill in the details of our timeline, we're going to have to create an event table. So we'll click New Row, Event Table Row, and we'll fill in the details of this table. Give it a name. Now let's say we want to have two different con med tables, one with continuing con meds and one with completed con meds. Instead of having to rebuild this table over again, what we can do is just make sure that that row is selected and then click this Clone Row button here. So now we've got two copies of the same exact table, and we can just adjust the display conditions for each of them. So the first one will be for continuing con meds, and then we'll just change the name up here, and we'll also change the name right in here. And then we'll do the same here. So now we have adjusted the display conditions for these two tables, and we're going to make sure that they are both displayed in our timeline as well, our new con med timeline. So we see that the show in timeline checkbox is checked, and then we make sure that con meds is selected as the timeline name. And for our continuing con meds, we're going to make sure that they are labeled blue. And for our completed con meds, we'll come down here, make the same, verify those that it's the correct timeline and that it's being displayed in, and adjust the color. And then we can come on over to our report view and take a look at that timeline as well as the tables. So we see our con meds timeline, we see our legend down here, and then our two con med event tables. The next thing that we're going to do is create a transpose table. And so we just click New Row, Transpose Table Row, and we fill this in with our lab data. And this is useful for transforming long, skinny data sets into a horizontal table. So then we just come in here and we check off our test names that we'd like to use. And we can make these smaller. And we'll give this a name right here. And then we'll add another row of graphs, and we will graph our lab data using the same information. And once again, you put the variable here into the subset variable, and then you just check off the test names that you would like to graph. We're going to use the same ones that we used for the transpose table. We can also drag our high and low reference ranges over to these buttons on the right here, and that will create shading on the graphs for the normal ranges. We'll change the name here. And we'll go ahead and click on our report view and take a look at those tables and graphs. I'm going to just scroll right down here. And we can see our lab data in this table right here, and then we can see the graphs below. And you can see right here where the patient went out of the normal reference range. All right, the last thing that we're going to do is explore different ways to save our profiles. You can save an individual patient's profile using any of these buttons right here. We can also click on this multiple patients button to save multiple patients at one time. So we go ahead and click on that, and we'll click all patients, full profiles. We want to save them as a PDF, which means that all of the patients will be saved. We're going to save them in a combined document, and we're going to add our two-level index. And then we'll just give it a name. I've actually already saved them ahead of time. It's going to be these Signia profiles right here. And then you just click Save. Another option for saving your profiles is if you just want to save, let's say, patients from a specific location. You just create a query right here. And we can just save all of our Boston patients. We want their full profiles in a PDF document, and we want them to be separate files, so one file per patient with the same directory. And then we just choose our directory right here, and we're going to choose Signia Boston. And once again, I've already pre-saved that. And finally, we can save just one aspect of our profiles. So let's say we just want to see our AE timelines for all patients in a single document. So we just click PDF, combine document, and here we've got those timelines. So we're going to take a look at those files right now. So the first one was the full profiles, all saved together. We can come right in here. If we open this up right here, we can see our two-level bookmarks to navigate to any of those aspects of the profiles, and we can just scroll through all of the patients, and then they're all in one single document. All right. The next thing was the individual patients' profiles for a specific location. So we can take a look at this patient right here from Boston and see their profile. And finally, just the timelines of all of the patients. Alright, so thank you for watching. That was just an introduction to creation of a basic profile, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.